Hey guys, I'm so excited to share with you my first interview for my Wounds to Wisdom series on YouTube. It is about a similar mission that me and a bunch of these incredible light workers have. I found a group of soul sisters that really share a deep understanding, a profound experience, and a message. And I feel like we are stronger when we are together. My first interviews with Jenna Galbert, who's now a lifelong soul sister. Holy cow, I love her so much. You will see us rant about raw, real, authentic stuff. There is no editing to this video. It even goes out at one point because it's just so powerful, in my opinion. And then we come back in, and I hope you enjoy it. I hope you leave us some comments so we know what you liked, what you want to hear next, because we're going to be doing a lot of these, and so on and so forth. Please share if you feel called, and I'll see you soon. Namaste. Okay, so hey you guys, I am here today with Jenna Galbert. She's amazing. She's going to tell you what she does in a second. But we just got into this rant right before I pushed record about this subject, and I wanted you guys to hear it because it is about identity and about defining ourselves and limiting ourselves and really trying to expand that. So this is the Wounds to Wisdom series, and we are going to begin. So Jenna, we were just talking about how I'm going to introduce you and how there's really no label because there's so many different ways you can take it, and there's so many ways we try to fit into something that doesn't exist. And tell me about your experience about starting this business and what that was like, because I feel exactly the same.
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction and the fact that you've left so much space for there not to be an introduction. So we were just talking, and I'm sure that a lot of you guys will get it, that in this day and age, everyone's a cognitive miser and everyone's so looking for what's the title or what's the label or how can I understand this thing without actually really cognitively thinking about what this thing is. And it's kind of the same thing as like, don't judge a book by its cover, and we're all looking for titles of things and like what's on the outside of the box without actually caring about what's in the inside. And it's not because we don't care, it's because there's not enough time, and we're constantly surrounded by so much information that in this day and age, it makes it so much easier when people just say, oh, I'm a life coach. But saying I'm a life coach, like, which I find problematic, and I hate it, and I hate the connotations and associations that come with it.
Yeah.
And even if I say spiritual life coach or Reiki healer or yoga instructor or writer or speaker,
it's not bad.
it's not bad. And no one, like whatever your job title is, you're so much more than that. And it's just funny that in the world that we're living in today, we must define ourselves. And I was just saying to Candace how I feel like as soon as someone asks me to define me or label me, I'm destroying me. And any kind of limitation is just destroying the boundless truth of what we really are. And as a spiritual life coach, what I really always try to work with people in is really just remembering the true nature of ourselves, which is this infinite, crazy, huge, amazing, awesome thing without any labels or titles. So I love that you let us start with that, and thanks for listening to a little rant. So yeah, and that's how I feel. So you said you also started that way. It was difficult for you to find the label.
Oh, girl. I mean, going back to the beginning, the original Wound was all about identity and all about labeling and being fit into this shit that is not really what I fit into, and people telling me I'm this because I don't fit into that. And it's like, it makes you think so many wrong things about your truth. True self for your health is really what I talk about all day long, because when you're not living in alignment with your true self, you're not healthy in one way or another. There are things going on. And the reason that happens is because you're like, well, to be loved, I got to fit here, which means I have to deny that. And to be a life coach, I can't be spiritual and weird, so I got to fit in it. And to be, it's all these things. And what I found in my work is I took so much time trying to define what the hell to call myself. And what I realized is every time I would do that, I was like, whew, it doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel right either. Yeah. What I decided is you're just going to see what I do, and you're going to like it or not going to like it, and you can do what you want. But it makes it hard to have your identity. And what makes it good about that is that your identity doesn't have to be really anything.
Yeah.
Your work, you're defined on your essence, what you do, how you heal, how people experience you. And I think in our society, that is the number one issue is we're trying to define shit that's undefinable. Because we're not finding our true selves. We're like, well, I'm not this, now I'm not. And then when your life changes, you lose yourself again because you're identified in the external, and it's crazy.
Yeah.
That's
no, and I love it. And we are identified in the external. And I think that part of that identification process and why we're so focused on external things is because our whole society is so built on working through the cognition, like working in the brain, working in the mind. Everyone is
not the heart.
Oh, it's like unbelievable. And we're trained like that since we're a little kid. We start off and we're all about the heart, and we're giving hugs to everybody. And then at the second that you hug someone you don't know, your parent instills fears in you, and they say, don't hug a stranger. That's really dangerous, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. The downloading starts. And then you go to school, and then something there, and it's just over and over again. We're constantly being told since we're so young, stop just acting, stop just feeling, stop being. You have to learn what it is that you're thinking. You have to learn how you're supposed to be. You have to learn what your identity is supposed to be. And then and then immediately it's so hilarious to me that they ask you about like occupation and what it is that you want to do. And of course, by then you've already forgotten what you are, and you're focused on thinking what you want to do. I remember when I was in college, again, because of all this thinking, and I'm in college now, and I'm studying stuff I don't want to be studying, and I'm constantly thinking, what do I want to do? What do I want to do? And I realized I don't know who I am. And it's so funny. I always think about this triangle that in this day and age, people always focus on what you want to have, right? You want to have the car and the house and whatever. So in order to get the thing that you want to have, you have to think about, okay, what do I do to get those things? And then after that, then I could be happy. Right. And this triangle, it's always so funny how our society goes in the reverse. And it's just, if you just be, if you just align and you just allow and you just are, then you'll do, and then you'll have in an instant.
What you said was literally the medicine, because people are so afraid to feel, because by doing what you naturally do, you get unaccepted, or you get love taken away, or you get shamed because you shouldn't have done that, or you shouldn't feel that way, or that's not really what mommy said, or you know what I mean? And so you have this disconnect of, I can't trust what I feel, so I won't do that. I won't do what feels good and trust that that'll get me all this stuff from inside out. Instead, I'm going to get all this stuff, and then it'll reflect that I feel good. It's completely backwards. And what's really frustrating is coming up in that way. I woke up really early in life because I had a lot of contrast in my childhood that taught me what I'm not and taught me what I am from that. Yeah. And because of that contrast, I started waking up really early in high school and seeing that this shit's scary. Like, this is not the right world. Like, it was really scary for me. And having to deny those feelings of knowing because everyone else thought it was a crazy, wacky idea to live from the inside out, and just suppressing that and seeing where depression comes from and seeing where illness comes from really denying your feelings, which is your guidance. So tell me about you. Tell me about your wounds. Tell me about your process of feeling it all and being it all. Yeah.
So first I just want to say, I freaking love you. And also everyone that's listening, we just started talking maybe 1 minute before this started recording. And I know you from like the things that you've posted. And so I totally have the sense and I get the vibe that like me and you have very similar stories. So I'm really excited to hear yours after this. But I was diagnosed with depression disorder and anxiety, ADD, ADHD, dyslexia, OCD, the whole thing. Really, really young. But depression disorder was the one that kind of took hold the most. Yeah. And depression became, it's so funny because in a way at the time it became my best friend because it was the only thing that I knew consistently for so long. And there was this really dark lust that I had with it. And I also associated my artistic sense and my deep thinking and my poetry and my perform. I associated that was my dark passenger, kind of like what Dexter talks about. And it's just so funny. And it morphed into this totally other thing. And I had been forced into seeing so many different psychotherapists, but even those, it was never really about what are you feeling? It wasn't ever authentic. It was like, and why do you think that is? And what do you think? And it was just,
what did you create to drive that? What did you do to create that feeling?
Yeah. Oh my God. And it was always like, it was really just furthering the pain. It was pushing me further and further away from the answers and pushing me further and further into more pain. And by pain, I mean dissociation, because the pain came from numbing. The pain came from escaping. The pain came from running it. And I did that over and over and over again. And the crazy thing is that while I was doing that, thinking that I was healing, because the world told me it's dangerous to feel those things. It's dangerous to feel sad. It's dangerous to feel depressed. It's dangerous to look outside at the world and think that this place needs help. And I came here at a very young age as a child thinking to myself, I came here with a purpose. I came here with a mission. I came here for a reason. I need to change the world. Yeah. But of course, when you say that as such a young kid to someone, alarms go off because they think, oh, this kid has delusions of grandeur, or, oh my God, they think that they can hold the world on their shoulders, or they think that they can feel other people's feelings or whatever. And then you get to a certain age where you start researching and you find out about what it means to be an introvert and what it means to be an empath and what it means to be an energetic being and have feelings. So, and I read on your website that you also, like, you found out that you were an empath, and that's kind of where the journey began. And so I would love to, we'll go back and forth, but I would love to hear how you found that out.
Yeah, it's a very similar, you're right. And it's what I felt about you too. It's almost an identical journey. And I see this in a lot of people that are sort of waking up to the light, or have always been awakened, but had to kind of dim it to survive in a way, which was my story too. Like, I have to repress it so that they don't think I'm crazy, or so that they allow me into the family. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, same story, where I grew up, like, literally from the time I was a kid, had sort of a very spiritual experience, we'll say, and knew that I had a very specific purpose, and I knew that everyone else did too. But I knew what mine was, and what was scary for me was getting the world on board. That's what it felt like, right? Which I'm sure it's the same for you.
Yeah.
And eventually realizing, oh my gosh, the issue with that sort of burden was that I was trying to make the world figure it out rather than just being it and being the example of it, and realizing that my way and your way are different. Neither one is right or wrong, but I have something to bring, and I don't need everyone else to confirm it before I own it.
Yeah.
And so we're always looking for this external validation of an internal truth that's not there yet. You are a way shower. You are a pioneer. And when I figured that out, I was like, oh, why didn't you tell me this 20 years ago? You know what I mean? But it was the moment where I was like, okay, it's time. Like, whatever this work is called, this is what I'm doing.
Yeah. And look at this cute little dog you have over there.
Hi, honey. Do you want to say hi? She's
oh.
I had this dog energy healer. I met her at a conference a long time ago. She goes, do you have a little Chihuahua type dog? She was amazing.
Yeah.
She goes, oh, she's a healer. Does she sit with you every time you're on Skype? I'm like, yeah. She said, well, she wants to be part of your healing. So now every client I have, she comes right up here.
That's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing.
You're my little angel.
Oh, I love animals. That's unbelievable. Yeah, I think animals have a real healing, especially dogs.
They want pure energy.
Karma. Yeah, they came here to heal, for sure. But so I didn't tell you, because again, it's so funny, and I don't want to get so into it, but whatever. But when I was really young, I had this constant vision, and I know that it was a memory, but of course I was brainwashed to think that I made it up, or it was just a dream or whatever. But it was so clear, and I had, like, the first thoughts I ever remember as a baby, as an infant, was this memory. And it was me. It wasn't even in a body, but it was like a light body, just light. And it was like the form of light. And I was in the circle, and I was surrounded by these other very tall beings, pure light. And every single one of them, they were each telling me something. And I had a feeling like, again, at this point, I don't understand I don't know what reincarnation means or whatever, but nonetheless, I had this sense that they were all me in a way, but I didn't get it. But nonetheless, they were all these beings.
Full body chills, because okay, go on.
I'm getting so excited. So I'm standing there in the middle, and all these beings are coming, and they're each telling me the thing. They're saying, okay, in this life, this is what you learned, and this is the thing that I got from this. Here you go. And then it was going on and on. Each of them were like telling me the grand lesson and the mission and the thing that they learned. And then all of them together, they say to me, okay, so now you're ready, you're prepared, are you ready to go? You chose to do this. Are you ready? You know your mission. Are you doing it? And I remember saying ready. And then literally the feeling is like, it's like a symphony of sensations, like this like tunnel of light where it was just like, and then like in the body. And I remember I had a lot of, of pain, like pain just being in the body. Like I knew myself as soul, as light, as pure energy, endless fat. Just, I knew myself as that so much more than this experience. And I remember as a kid looking down and like grabbing my skin and being like, what is this thing? Like, what am I trapped in? What am I in? What am I doing? And I remember sharing that vision with a teacher. And that's why I initially got tested, because she heard me say this thing. And I said to her, and I chose to come here, and I'm on this mission, and I'm going to change the world, and I'm going to find the other ones like me, and we're going to do it together, and blah, blah, blah. And she said immediately, that's why she sent me to go get tested. It's hilarious.
So we just got cut off because the energy was so unbelievable that it went boom.
It was like too much energy. And we're like, seriously, that's what happens. Two indigos together, two light workers. It happens all the time.
I'm telling you, the clients I have that know that they're indigo, every single time it takes about 3 hours for a 1 hour session, because we're like, wait, hold on, call you back. It never works in one full shot. It's too amazing. I just love that though.
No, it's freaking amazing. That's one of those experiences where like you can't really question this whole thing anymore. Like it happens way too often. It's just not coincidental at this point.
Oh yeah, like I wear this watch, and my husband's always like, is your watch working? I'm like, no. Every single day, it stops. Every single day, I'm like, I just wear it because it's cute at this point.
Wait, does it stop at the same time?
That's a good idea to look. I don't know. I'm gonna look right now.
No, it's probably what's the time on it?
2:45. So it's an hour late. Okay. No, it's an hour ahead of me.
Hour ahead. Yeah. So do you know about angel numbers?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like you certainly do. Yeah. I find them tremendously helpful. Like I see the same number all the time, and usually it's exactly the message that when I like look it up and I'm like, okay, like what does Sacred Scribe say about it? It's exactly what I need. So I wouldn't be surprised if when your watch is stopping, it's telling you to look up that time and what it means.
You know what? You're probably right, because honestly, for the last 10 years, I've seen 11:11 twice a day, every single day. Yeah. And 1:11, like 10 years. And people are now like, oh, 11:11. I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, we have a relationship between 11:11. It's been like probably 11 years at this point, where it started happening at the time. I would be like in a split decision. And it would, and then it was every day. But that's when it started happening. And I was like, oh, it's like choose an alignment with ideal or real, which is something too. And to this day, I see it and I'm like, oh, that's the moment of choice. But what the hell's a choice? You know, so you have to like tune inward and find that answer. But it's clicking you into kind of waking up to be like, that's the moment. That's the moment of independence. That's the moment where you're going to make a choice that's going to change stuff. It's crazy. Numbers run my life. Seriously.
Yeah. Well, numbers really do run life, because numbers
really do.
They really do. I think it's just the funniest thing. Like, our language is so limited, but numbers really is like the language of the universe. And when you think about quantum physics and the fact that it's so funny how we always talk about there's time and there's space, but as soon as you start learning about quantum physics, it's like, no, there's really just one dynamic field, and it's time space, and it's this one thing, and numbers are the way to transfer them, and knowing like where you're moving in space, not only just in time. It's like, yeah, I'm with you. I can geek out forever about this.
No, it's true. We can run rants all day long, but before we got off, I want to go back to what you were talking about.
Oh, right, we're recording.
I know. We were recording, but whatever. But we were talking about indigo children, and I asked you if you knew what it was, and clearly the answer is yes. And it's funny because two things you said earlier I want to bring up because it's so profound. First thing you said is when you had that spiritual experience, it was like everyone was kind of you. Mm-hmm. So when I had my first spiritual experience, I was too young to remember. I was playing the game Memory with myself and my imaginary friend who looked exactly like me. And that's when it started, where I was like, whoa, there's another reality going on. Not to sound weird, but yeah, it is weird. And it's weird. Yeah. Taught that it's weird. Yeah. So that's when I first remembered it. And then when I had my second sort of, I would call it spiritual awakening, when it was just big, where it was out of body and I can't even explain it with words yet. I saw myself everywhere. And I realized, oh, we're all one. And that was the first understanding that there is no difference between me and you. It's just the understanding of that. and, you know, it gets crazy. But that's the first thing. The second thing, so I'm validating that that was almost identical to my experience, which is like weird. But the second thing is when you said, you know, find your people and find, when you had that awakening, you were like, oh, I'll find the others like me. And part of my mission has been to find the others. You know, and I think for so long I was looking in the wrong place because so many others weren't awakened to it or owning it yet. And now that you step into it, you are kind of attracting that because you're accepting that. And so I find this year especially, it's taken me so long to find my people. It's like stressful. But this year especially, I'm like, oh, you, and it's so obvious.
Yeah.
Oh, that's my tribe.
Yeah.
I used to get so pissed when people were like, well, find your tribe, love them hard. I'm like, where's my effing tribe?
Yeah.
And then I realized who it is. But you have to accept it before you can see it. And that's his life. So I'm excited to find another member of my tribe. That's
hell yes. And so I just want to play with you for a sec. So I think, you absolutely have to accept it first, like on a very deep level, accept it. And then I think you have to really, truly embody it on like so many levels. So it's one thing to think about and just be like, okay, fine, like I accept it, but to allow it you have to be vibrating at it in purity, in fullness every second of the day. And when I first started, I mean, listen, I can show you who I was friends with in high school and like, I can't even sit in the same room as these people for 10 minutes without feeling that. I mean, I also was a very different person at the time, but now I'm and not that the externals show who you are, but just as an example, like at one point in time, I was having lots and lots of random sex and eating lots and lots of meat and drinking 5 cups of coffee a day and so much alcohol and so much drugs and so much just unawareness. And so, you know what I mean? And that transmuted and that manifested in all these actions. And all of my peers, all of my friends looked the same way as me in feelings and thoughts and actions and emotions, all of them. And we all were quite angry people. And I think it's really funny. I think a lot of the times the darker you are, the more light capacity you actually have. I also think it's so funny how the human mind always likes to think of things in binaries, right? And like, it's either black or it's white or it's this or it's that. And I think that, and we always think about everything in just a line, but really understanding that everything is a circle and it's a cycle and it's really, everything works spirally, not just on this one little line, but it's really this everlasting circle and circle and circle, and it's forever and infinite. And I think that when you really understand that, you start realizing that, okay, if this is at least how I understand it, that I think that me as a person, I'm one is that I'm like fractally, I represent the same energetic mechanisms as the world itself and the whole universe. And then the world is also a representation of a cell, and a cell is a representation of the whole entire multiverse, you know, and it goes on and on like that. And so I think that the way that everything works, and these are just the words that I'm using to describe it, is that if this is the center of anything, if I pull out the potential to be this depressed here, right? And this is and this is the potential. That means that this potential must swing around the exact same way to the light. So it's impossible, because the world is balanced. It's impossible for me to be this depressed without also having the capacity to be this blissful. It's impossible for me to be like this much of a murderer as it is for me this much of a healer. You know, I really truly think, and I think that the problem is our society tells people that are in the darkness, that are in the bad place, whatever, that they're bad.
That's right.
And it's not like that at all. And I think that so much of the time, those people with the most darkness, the most addictions, the most whatever, really are the ones that are able to heal at such a great capacity. And we're just told lies, and we're told that we can't do anything and that we're stuck that way. And I can go on and on about this, but I think that most light workers really have this dark past, and I think it's a process of initiation.
I will say, like, I never did. And this is what's interesting, though. I never did. I was always obsessed with being so good and obsessed with doing nothing wrong, because when I was younger and I was told there's something wrong with you, you're different, you think different, you don't fit into the system. I was like, there's nothing wrong. I'm feeling like heaven on earth all the time. But I would act out so dramatically to get the validation of my own feelings. And since I didn't get that, I thought, okay, as a teenager, I'm now just going to be perfect. So I don't do anything wrong anymore. And I don't do bad. I'm not bad. I'm not wrong. So I'm just going to be perfect. So no one can reject me. And in doing that, you're self-rejecting because you're not able to be authentic if you're always trying to be perfect. So I went the other way. And I was like, I don't drink, I don't have sex till I'm like 22. I didn't do anything because I didn't want to have anyone tell me, see, you are wrong. You are bad. I'm like searching for my goodness in the wrong place. So, but at the same time, those deep emotions are the dark of the light. And I think this is our society, going back to what you just said. We don't understand that we need to feel it to heal it. We don't understand like these bad things we're doing or these bad things we're feeling, they're not because we're bad. They're because there's something that needs to be loved. Something that needs to be healed. And if you stop seeing it as okay, if you judge it and you see it as dark and bad, you identify with that, and then you can't become the light that you are.
Right, exactly.
You're capping yourself. So society, sorry guys, but it's true. Society works well in that way. So like, oh, you're depressed, you need these drugs forever. So I keep making money and I keep suppressing you and I keep making you unempowered, which is unenlightened. Therefore, there's no more light in the world. You get to continue it. And here we are being like busting through the system, being like, no, that doesn't work. And I know better. And
it takes a long time to know better.
Girl, my biggest issue when I decided to just own it completely was, why did it take me so long? And I was like, it took me so long because everyone around me was telling me I'm wrong. And you have to open up to your own author, your inner authority of your own life, and be like, oh, the wise guide is inside. That's a big move. It's a bold thing. And all of us light workers are doing that by just literally being it. That's how I live. I live different than that. I live happy and free. I'm not authentic about how I feel. I feel crazy today. I feel great today. It's all the same.
It's all the same, and it's all amazing, and it's all authentic, and the authentic experience, even if it's dark or it's light, whatever it is, it's beautiful. It's such a funny thing. I remember when I really started, and we'll fill in the gaps here and there, but when I really started allowing and just feeling everything, and I really started going through all the healing and all that, I remember the first time that I hit a depression moment. And it was so funny because I remember there was a voice that told me, oh, this is where you're supposed to be afraid. Like, okay, I can feel the lack of serotonin rushing through my system. I can feel that they're not getting picked up by the neuroreceptor. Like, I can feel them just hanging out in my synapse and they're not moving along. Like, I can feel that my neurons aren't lighting up and sending it all the way. By the way, I was studying neurology at this time, so it was a very intellectual process to me. But I was like, but nonetheless, it was such an interesting experience because I was kind of like in the witness mode where I can see these mechanisms in my body moving. And I knew that in the moment I had the choice to attach to the thought, oh, this is depression, AKA this is scary, this is bad, this is dark. And I recognized, okay, yes, maybe in my body there really is a physiological, neurological, chemical matter that makes me, yes, okay, maybe I'm less happy, but that still doesn't mean that I have to be miserable, or it doesn't mean that I have to be terribly sad or fearful or whatever. And I remember being in the depression and being happy. It was one of the most amazing experiences where I sat there and I was sitting with it and I had darkness and I had the fear and I had all of it. And I said, listen, you're all welcome here. You're all welcome. But I'm not going to feed you. You know, I'm sitting here present in my own experience and I am choosing bliss. And you're allowed to stay, whatever it is. And they went. That's the thing. Whenever we're fighting them or whatnot, it's like they get more mad. It's like a young kid. Like, I don't have kids, but I'm guessing that if I was a mother and my young kids were like, mommy, 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 and they're like grabbing on my arm and like pulling my clothing and they're like really trying to get my attention, I keep on like swatting them away. What happens? They get louder. They pull more. They hurt me more. They throw things at me at this point, you know? And it's like, that's it. They're our children. We have to love them and care for them and listen to them and say, oh, you're here to tell me something? What do you need? What do you need? I'm here. It's okay. You're allowed to be here.
The wounds to wisdom. What people understand is the wounded inner child will hijack your adult self if you don't give it the love and attention it needs. Because just like when your inner child, your small child, didn't get the validation of its emotions, that's what you're doing to yourself now. And what it wants you to do is say, just give me what I needed.
Yep.
And then I'll give you what you want.
Yep.
And I always say that if you reparent it and say, oh, okay, like I do this to myself nonstop. And that's why I can do it for a living, because I literally do it for a living. I literally have any kind of, depression or anything that I ever feel, whether it's because of the time of month or whatever, I'm still human. I feel stuff. I'll go in and I'll say, what is it you need?
Yeah.
What is it you need to be acknowledged? What is it that you're seeing wrong that I need to kind of misinterpret or reinterpret for you? What is it I can do for you? And it's such a union that happens between yourself and yourself, where you become whole. You become whole. And what happens, people always ask me, they're like, you're so young. How do you know these things? How do you have this wisdom? I'm like, because I listen inside. I hear shit. I don't judge it. I don't think twice. I just say it out loud, and it makes a lot of sense, and it heals my life.
Yes.
And that's our wisdom that we don't realize is wisdom. Our inner child has the answers. We've literally conditioned it out of ourselves, living in our head.
Yeah.
And you go back to that feeling and you feel it and you talk to it and you start to understand its messages. You get the wisdom of the experience and you become healed. You literally do.
Yeah.
Everything I've had in my life, I've healed by myself. It sounds weird. Ovarian cysts, gone. Depression, gone. ADD, gone. Whatever it is they want to label, it's a symptom of a wound.
Yes. Literally, so every single thing I've ever had and been diagnosed with, and I also had ovarian cysts, by the way, I've also healed them all. And it's funny because I have seen 9 psychotherapists in my lifetime. None of them helped. I had seen tons of doctors, been on tons of, I've tried so many different things, none of them helped. The only thing that really helped was going inwards. And it's so funny just to mirror back to you. I'm 25, and all the time when I'm speaking at an event or coaching or whatever it is, I have people that are older usually come to me and they say the same kind of thing, where they're like, how do you know all this stuff? You're so young. How did you figure it out? Blah, blah. And then sometimes they even ask, like, did you go to school? Like, where did you learn this from? And it's so funny because I always say, I went to Cornell. And I studied with shamans. I in South America. I studied with Kabbalists in Israel. I did all these things. I studied Reiki, I studied yoga, blah, blah, everything. All of my wisdom, all of it has always come from within. None of it has come from these places or things or credibility. None of it. And I always try to say that I'm like, it's nothing with the external world. It's always about going internally. Always, always, always.
Girl, I love you. When I was in high school, I was looking for a major. What was it going to become? And at the time I had started modeling already, so I knew that I was going to travel and do that because it was just something I really wanted to do.
Yeah.
Maybe it was because it was the one way that society did validate me. Could be it, because it did. I mean, I have to try. But the other thing was, it wasn't me. My heart was, I want to heal. My heart was, I have wisdom. And I was young, and I was looking for an external validation of that. There was I couldn't find any major that was what I wanted to do. I had been to therapists. I wanted to be a spiritual psychologist. I didn't think it existed. I knew that it had to go deeper than just therapy because that didn't do shit for me.
Yeah.
And I couldn't find it. So what I ended up doing, which is hilarious, is I ended up going to pre-naturopathic doctor was the degree in Bridgeport, Connecticut. It was the only school in the U.S. that offered that. Now, Bridgeport was a really scary ass place at the time where there was like shootings on campus. We all had to walk around with a pager. Very scary. Not me at all. But I was like, that's my purpose. That's the only way I can find it in the world. I got to do it. So I went for a year and realized, no. So I put that on hold. I was like, this is the worst experience ever. So I put that on hold, and I just traveled the world and kept modeling and acting and doing all that. It was fun. It paid my bills, and it was a great experience, but it was still not my work, like my purpose work. So finally, 5 years ago or 6 years ago, I said, I just need this validated so other people will get it, so other people will trust me, because that's what society says. If you go to Cornell or you have a master's or whatever, people will believe you. So I went to get my master's at University of Santa Monica. It's spiritual psychology. And I was like, finally. And that's when this work started hitting, because people were like, oh, you got a degree in it. I'm like, God, if they only knew all I got from that was validation of what I already know. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it definitely helps you put things in places and make a program and whatever. But it wasn't something that I went to learn. It was something that I had to validate.
Yeah.
I already knew.
Yeah.
And that's what's so backwards.
Yes, it is so backwards. I can't even, and it's so funny. I always think to myself, and now clients mirror this back to me too. They always say, I've seen X amount of therapists. I've seen this person. I've seen people with this degree, with that degree, with PhDs, whatever. None of them have helped. But I can feel the level of helping that's happening with you.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, I know. And then, of course, at the beginning of this whole thing, so my parents are conservative and traditional and religious and all lots of things that I'm not. And anyways, they're very in the mainstream culture. They're there, and that's part of their journey, and that's okay. And it's interesting because all my life, a lot of it has been imposed on me. And I remember when I first started doing this, they were like, spiritual, like life, what is that? And then they said to me, okay, why don't you go get a PhD, or why don't you go do this, or please, like, like, let us know that it's okay, that what you're doing is okay, you know?
Yeah.
And it was like that sort of validation. And even recently I was writing a book because I want to heal people and because I want to help people and because there's this thing inside of me that wants to go. But I realized at the end, when I finished the proposal and I sent it in, I realized that so much of me writing it was in order to get my parents off my back, was in order to tell my parents or the world or whatever that, hey, what I'm doing is allowed. What I'm doing is okay. It was this sense of, it was permission. And it was this, like, it came, and it wasn't out of love. It really, truly was out of fear. It was out of, someone please give me permission and tell me that what I'm doing is okay. Because it was the first time I had left. I mean, my dad forced, I chose it.
Edit that out.
It's right. No, let's keep it, because it's funny how we always foresee these things and we always put external blame on people. And while, in my frustration and whatever wants to say blame and that he forced me to do it, really I chose to. But nonetheless, through coercion, I chose to go to the hospitality school at Cornell. And I started studying hospitality management. And that's really what my dad wanted me to do. And so I started there. And I was more depressed than ever. I would have panic attacks every single night, wake up in hot sweats. I was so suicidal. It was so horrible. I can't even begin to explain how truly terrible it was. And then I decided, I spent a lot of time like you thinking, what am I supposed to study? What's going to be my major? Blah, blah. And then I triple majored philosophy, psychology, and neurology. And close. I'm like, I don't know. And I didn't know. No one ever tells you, oh, there's this thing called life coaching or spirituality or Reiki or or holistic healing or functional medicine. Or
part of that is you don't want to see it anyway because you want it to be mainstream so it could be accepted. I know, I did the same thing. That's why I know.
I know. I think
like, fuck it, I'm gonna do it. That's me.
Right.
And it's gonna. I mean, it's so funny. I know it's such a similar thing with so many people, and I think in so many people coming forward and actually being who they truly are, it will shift things slowly, really. And I already see a big change happening. But I have the same story about my book, by the way. I wrote my book 4 years ago, and I've never done anything with it because it's about indigo children. Because it's my story, number one. Number two, it's a lot of information for people who are labeled, mislabeled, who are light workers to understand themselves and how to have a daily practice. But I never did it because I said, God, I don't want to write a proposal and have them not get it. Like, my fear was someone not getting it. Yeah. And now I'm at the point where I'm super fearless in that and I'm ready. Yeah. And writing it and sending it in seems like a lot of work to me. Yeah. And it seems like something I don't really know. So it's literally sitting there. And the thing that's crazy about it is it's literally the message. Yeah. It's literally my message. Why don't you just... And it's that residual fear of, oh, they're not going to get it anyway, or what if it doesn't get the support it needs? It's just this whole old pattern of fear that's literally kicking its own ass until it's just ready. But it's taken me 3 years.
Well, I would say, so one thing that I always do is I really love reframing things. And I think that while all that is true, there also might very well just as equally be a very positive reason for it happening. It might be that there is this very intense, very specific, unbelievable understanding or refinement of the message that you need to spread that isn't ready yet to appear itself to you. And that's why you're sitting and doing it.
Right. Yeah. You go to the fear because I'm like, that other thing doesn't make sense, but it feels right. Knowing me, I've always done everything I felt. I've always followed that voice, whether it looks crazy or perfect or what I did. And that's why I'm here. Yeah. And so there's a part of me, I tell my husband this all the time because he's like, honey, no. He goes, it's about timing. It's about timing. And I always fight him with that. But I'm like, But you're right, because it feels like it might be almost there now.
Yeah.
Like, right. And when it is, the right support comes in, the right time.
Yeah.
It's a vehicle.
It just happens. So
Exactly.
one thing I tell you, do you know Sandy Burchard, I should say. She's a good friend I'll introduce you to. She came out as an Indigo child really young, and she was on like mainstream news television when she was like 14 years old, talking about her experience. Now she's a spiritual life coach. She's definitely part of the tribe. I'll introduce you.
Maybe I do know that, but I gotta look.
Yeah, I'll introduce you to her. And for anyone watching, she's awesome. It's Sandy, Sandie. Burchard is Bershad, sandyburchard.com, and on all social media. She's wonderful, truly soul sister. And I think she's putting together a Indigo child book too. So you guys should definitely chat. And I think, so I'm also in the process of regermination. When I sent in the book proposal, it was, for me, I threw in everything into that book. And I mean, like, I threw in what will be 5 books into this one thing because of that fear of this might not be enough, or maybe this is my only shot, or maybe I need so badly my parents to get off my back. And you know, like, honestly, it was just so much pressure. And I realized as soon as I got comfortable and got still and really just fully sat in it and accepted it and learned to love it and bring the light into it, it's really funny how even my relationships with my parents have completely transformed. Suddenly, as soon as I started also respecting them more and respecting myself more and upping my self-love practices and upping my beliefs and really truly understand such a deep cellular level that this is what I'm meant to do and this is what I'm going to do for my life, and I am in no rush. Literally, as that happened, everything is just, it's easy and graceful. And my parents get it. So like it's like a miracle. It's like I made the decision and stepped into a parallel universe that I in the other one didn't think could ever be possible. That's what it feels like.
You're a way shower. So by showing yourself the way, you're showing them by being it. It's true.
Yeah.
I always thought the same thing. I'm like, no one's ever going to get it, blah, blah, blah. I mean, my mom sent me the cutest note not too long ago, and she's like, I need your address. One of my friends wants to send you, she made me this homemade scarf. She wants to send you a gift for all your insight videos. Like, all her friends watch my insight videos. So cute. I'm like, what? You watch my videos? She's like, oh, they're so good. You're doing some work. What? Like, my mom's a business major. Like, she doesn't, you know what I mean?
Yes.
And it was like, for me to let go from needing them to get it, they got it.
Yeah.
By me just owning it and getting it, other people get it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
100%. 100%. I also think, so in the process, I'm a Jungian. I love Carl Jung, like absolutely obsessed. He's unbelievable. I'm in love with him. So anyways, there's this process that he talks about called individuation. And in that process, one thing that's really interesting is this concept of necessary crimes. And the way that he talks about it is he says that, so the process of individuation is us coming into ourselves. And part of that process is kind of doing things against our parents or against society or against whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that for so much of the time, you know, in order for us to really claim who we really are, we first have to back away from the people who think of us as the other person from before. It's just so necessary. I've had to remove nearly all of my friends from before. You just have to. It's part of the process. And it might be sad and it might be painful and whatever, and it's scary. It's scary. And I get that. And people, whenever I tell this to, they're like, oh, but what if I don't find anyone else? And what if this and whatever? And I always tell them, you know, the universe hates voids. It's like, it's that simple. We don't like empty space. So as soon as you remove something else comes in. And when you remove something and you sit in the stillness of the emptiness and you just vibrate there and you stay aligned with that, the thing that matches that comes in. And suddenly you're like, oh my God, why did I stay with that person?
Yeah.
Like literally, I had a boyfriend who was truly an absolute narcissist, and I absolutely am so thankful for him because he really helped me, kick me in the ass to make me leave Cornell, get a backpack, go to South America, hang out with shamans and do ayahuasca and figure out what the fuck just happened, because it was so painful and he was lying to me and cheating on me and manipulating me for a year. And I was so afraid to leave him because I thought, I'll never find anything better. I'll be alone forever. I'll never know this kind of love again. And I was so trapped in that drama and believing that. And it's crazy because now I've had 3 partners since him that have been the most unbelievable people I've ever been with in my entire life. And my partner right now is really, he embodies everything that I've ever conceptualized about what ideal love is. He's it. It's like, it's unbelievable. And I mean that in the way that there's no attachment and holding on to, because even if it's best for him to leave, there will be someone else who also embodies that, and we mirror and partner together. It's like, I never thought unconditional love was true or real, or that friendships can be amazing and that you can love, like, I'm going on an absolute rant, but if any of you are holding on to something out of fear or not getting something better, trust me, there's better. Go.
Well, I want to just make a point on that. I had a codependent relationship too in my early 20s. And it's funny because a lot of what I've found from research and experience, a lot of light workers, indigos become codependent because they're dependent on someone else's approval and all that shit, since you're all so different. And so what we think is that's the only one. Like, that's, of course. And what happens is you realize the thing you think is in them is actually in you. You just have to own it. And then you don't need it. And then what happens is you do attract that unconditional. When you realize I'm enough, when you, like, the experience, not the mindset, oh, I get it, I'm enough. No. The experience of like, oh my God, I'm like good. I'm enough. I can take care of myself. I love myself no matter what. You attract that partner that mirrors it. Mm-hmm. And that's when I met my husband. I knew he was the one because our first conversation, I was like, I don't really know. I'm in transition. I don't really want to act anymore. I don't really know. Yeah, I want to be a spiritual teacher. And he's like, what? And I was like, yeah, but I don't really know where I'm going to live. I have a down payment in New York, and I have this dog. I don't really know what the fuck's going on. The first time in my life, I was like honest about everything. He was that is badass. I'm like, what? And here's this like put together from the East Coast, like perfect looking person, business, everything's like, so I'm like, you're not gonna get it. He's like, that's the most honest thing I've ever heard. That is unbelievable. I love that. I'm like, what? You're unconditional with my shit right now? He's like, yeah. And I was like, whoa, that's weird. That exists. So you don't have to be anything for people to be in love with you. You just be your crazy mess and people dig it. And it's not really a mess anyway. But that's the truth. You attract what you decide you are. You attract what you feel. And that's what people think, oh, I'm going to attract what I am. No, you don't. You attract what you feel about what you are. Yeah. You attract what you feel about what you are. Yeah. That's the energy. That's the magnet. And if you feel it to heal it, you're attracting healing. You're attracting wholeness. You're attracting unconditionality. Yeah. We're so conditional with how we feel. We're so conditional with what we think it needs to be that we attract conditions.
Exactly.
Just to break you down.
Exactly. I love that.
Codependent boys.
I mean, they're still out there. They're out there and they're looking for empaths and people of light. They're looking for us. And it's so funny. There's this one unbelievable article that really changed it for me. It's called The Toxic Relationship Between a Narcissist and an Empath. It's by Alex Miles, it's on Elephant Journal. Alex Miles, who's an unbelievable writer. She's also Soul Sister. I'll introduce you guys to. She's unbelievable. She writes a new article for Elephant Journal every single day, and her wisdom is unbelievable. And for any empath that's listening to this, and I'm guessing there's a lot of you, definitely, probably all of you. You have to look up this article, The Toxic Relationship Between a Narcissist and an Empath, because it's just this thing that happens with empaths, that a narcissist gets attracted and it just happens. And I really think I've done so much healing at this point that I'm able to really look at it with gratitude, because it's exactly as you said, that the things that I saw in him and the things that I thought that I needed, things that I wanted, were things that I already had and things that I didn't yet accept and really understand and feel in my own body. And it's funny when you think about the conditions. I really love the way that you said it, and it's absolutely true. If we're conditional with ourselves, if we say, I can't love you unless you're happy, or I can't love you unless you look like this, or I can't love you unless you get an A, or I can't love you unless you have a boyfriend, or I can't love you unless whatever. We say this all the time to ourselves over and over for the smallest, littlest, dumbest, whatever things. We say it all the time. And that's why the majority of our relationships are with people that do the exact same thing to us, because the quality of our relationships in the external world mirror the relationship that we have with ourselves. And over again, it's just this constant mirrors. And we have to thank and be appreciative for the people that come to us, even when they're dark, scary, mean, whatever, because they're showing us where we need to have more love with ourselves. Always.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
That is so important. It's funny. I've been really researching narcissism a lot lately because it tends to me, and I'm sure you have the same thing with your clients. I always have, when I have new clients, because I rotate in and out so people have time to heal. I do it in this interesting way. When I have new clients come in, like 10 or 12 at a time, I swear to God, they all have the same shit going on, like all the same. And it's something within me that I'm supposed to upgrade and understand more.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
A few months ago, I mean, it was actually maybe longer than that. I had this cycle of people I was coaching that were all dealing with a narcissistic parent or boyfriend or girlfriend. And I was like, ooh, this all looks the same. This literally looks the same. So I started doing all this research on it, and it's so true that I always coach the light workers, and they're all empathic. And I was like, oh my God, that's the link. You are all so sensitive. You don't have that boundary yet to realize. And once I worked on their boundaries with them, it was like those relationships all were transmuted. It was so incredible. Like, I wish I could have videotaped that 6-month time in everyone's life, because it was like, I swear to God, every one of them had a complete transition of whatever that relationship was. When they found their boundaries, owned their truth, and understood the difference between your feelings and what mine are, and what that feels like and what I think that's supposed to look like. And it was so incredible.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's so huge, this narcissistic relationship in society. It's almost like we're trained to want that, because what the narcissist represents is ideal. What I teach is how to be real. So it's literally the opposite.
Yeah.
And you have to go through that to really get it a lot of the time.
Yeah, a lot of the time. And I just, first of all, I love the fact that you just said about your clients and that whole thing, because mirroring back to you too, I have a very similar thing going on. And the first time I noticed it was last year. And this is for anything, for anyone listening. Whenever I see something in threes, it's a message. Like, do not ignore it. Do something. Like, whenever you see anything in threes, even if it's, this sounds kind of weird, but I do a lot of animal tracking also. So if I see a specific bird fly by, and then I'm driving and there's a sticker on the car in front of me of that bird, and then I get to the grocery store and on a bag of chips is that bird, whatever, I will look up, like, what does this bird represent? And there's this great guy, Ted Andrews, who does it. But anyways, there's just, like, no matter what, if you see the same color, whatever it is, look into it. There's a sign there. There's something that you need to do. And I always see there's always so many patterns, and the universe is working with us in the fun. Like, there's so many signs and signals throughout the way. And last year, the first time that happened that it represented to me through clients was last year. I had it was 3 at first, but then it got to like an obscene number within the same month. I'm trying to think. I think it was about 8 women reached out to me, all with eating disorder type stuff going on, all body image, eating disorder, that sort of thing. And it was really funny because at that time, I was in resistance to the idea that, and this is last year, I was in resistance to the idea that I still had some lingering body image, eating disorder stuff going on. And they all came to me. And so I'm like, okay, this is the work. This is the work. So I start working with them. And when I bursted through certain things, whether it was body or whatever it was, when I would burst through it on my own, I'd get on the phone with them. They were healed of that.
100%.
I would get on the phone with the next one. They moved through that. It was the most unbelievable. It was like, I've never heard somebody else have a similar experience. For a while I was like, is someone tricking me? Like, is this made up? Is this real? Because it was just happening. And back to the conversation about we are all one. We really are all one. And I was thinking about this earlier today. You know the term like collective consciousness? Like there's a collective consciousness. Okay. I think that term is, how do I describe it? That term is actually putting us further away from the truth, because it's not that it's collective from individual towards the collected consciousness. It's that it's the other way, right? It's that there's this consciousness dispersed out into our beings. It's not collected. We are literally that one thing, that consciousness. When we die, we are that consciousness. We are this eternal energy. We are life source itself. We are God, whatever you want to call it. We are that thing itself, over and over again, put into bodies, put into the experience of individuals, so that we may heal this one thing, so that we can complete the whole oneness and fix the aspects. And it's so funny, because whenever we connect and we have these moments where you're so just in the thing that you are, and somebody else comes to you and they're in the thing that they are, if you move in one way, they move the same way. They move in, it's just, and then you go break down into neurology. We have mirror neurons in our brain, so that when you cry, I feel like I'm crying. Yeah. When you laugh, I want to laugh. It's like, it's unbelievable at so many levels. This is just the way that it is. No matter if you believe in spirituality, whatever, go to neurology, go to biology, go to anything.
All the same.
True. It's all the same thing.
Language. It's like religion. It's kind of all saying the same thing in a different way.
Yeah.
And, I want to touch on that. Talk about wounds to wisdom. I notice that with all my clients. It's almost like you liberate them by liberating yourself. And that's why I think we're brought for sure, because you're vibrating on that level and you're the leader in that way for them. Like, you're healing them by allowing them to see how they can heal themselves. It's just sharing that ability to tap inward. And I studied this thing in grad school, actually, about sort of the family circle. And a lot of people, I had this idea when I was in high school about what's hereditary. Like, oh, my whole family has cancer. It's hereditary. You know what I mean? And I remember thinking to myself, I don't think it's that. I remember thinking, I was studying energy and shit when I was like 12. And I remember like seeing auras and like seeing things in people. And I'm like, I don't think it's that. And what I came to later in life was, I really feel like there's a genetic, like, you take on what the other person didn't heal. It's almost like this emotional genetics, this emotional hereditary whatever that comes out in the symptom of illness, comes out in the symptom of a cyst, comes out in the symptom of. And I noticed, because I was like, wow, it's really weird. Like, I don't really have the illnesses that, knock on wood, are in a lot of people in my family, but I could tell that it could be. It's a weird thing where I could tell that, ooh, I'm sensitive to that. But I noticed that the deep emotions that I had to go through that weren't always mine, but I was almost like transmedium for others. And I would see shifts in family members. And what they say in spiritual psychology is there is this whole download of when you heal, you're kind of healing them all. Yeah. And for you and for our clients, I feel like it's similar, where it's a soul group and y'all have the same wound. And when you heal the wound, it gets a little easier for them. And I really believe that, because I've seen it over and over again. And even if your family gets or doesn't get it, it's still happening on an energetic level. When you heal something that's in the lineage, theirs is being lifted. Have you seen that? Yes. It's crazy. It's not crazy. I say crazy because we've been taught that that's crazy, but it's actually normal. Like, it's powerful, but it's like,
it is what it is. It is
what it is.
It is.
But that's the wounds to wisdom. That's what I'm talking about. When I look in my wounds and I go through my wounds, I hear the wisdom. When I go through it, I get to transmute it, and so do they. Yeah. It's not about selfishness. Self-love isn't about just loving yourself and being a narcissist. Self-love is literally like, it's like, I am loving the truth of me so that I can reflect that in you. Yeah.
And that I can heal all the ancestors before me and all the beings that will come after me. It's just, it's really what it is. Like, it is what it is. That's exactly what it is. And it's so, like, there are no words to describe it. And I've felt it. I've witnessed it. My family has felt it and witnessed it. And I remember I must have been high school or something, because I remember it was the first time that I had chosen to see a psychotherapist on my own. And I was sitting there sometime in high school. I don't remember what it was, but I sat, and I remember sitting, just landing down on the couch and saying to him on an absolute intuitive level, saying, I feel like I'm carrying the pain of all of my family. I feel like I'm carrying what my parents feel, what my sister feels, what my cousins feel, what my grandparents feel, what they feel. Like, I feel like I feel all the things that they denied that they were actually feeling. Because I am choosing to be awake, I am feeling all of it. And because it's almost like, I do believe that we choose our families, but I also believe that there's a mutual sense where that they choose us. They know that, okay, there's so much that maybe we're unwilling to heal. We need to choose this type of being to take on the pain at first in order to heal all of us. Because you know what? No one can do this alone. We need each other to do this. And I really think, and pain it's such a beautiful thing. So I used to be very afraid of pain, and I was awake for surgery when I was little on my face. I was bit by a dog and I was awake. It's a whole long traumatic thing. But ever since then, I was very afraid of needles. And I remember my last recent surgery, I broke a thing. It wasn't a big deal, but I cut some tendons and I had to fix it. And I remember going to the hospital and being I'm terrified of hospitals, not anymore, but right. So I'm in the moment. I'm terrified of hospitals, terrified of needles. And I'm sitting down and I'm holding the person's hand who took me down. I'm holding their hand and I'm shaking and I'm shaking. I'm oh my God, no. And then I remember in my moment I said, and this is before I did a lot of healing, but nonetheless, I said to myself then, I'm wait a minute, you know what? I let go and I looked right at it. And I literally looked right at it. And I'm watching them give me the shots there. And I remember breathing in really deeply as they're doing it and saying, it's going to be okay. And I remember I didn't even feel it. I'm talking about, I had for over 20 years, crazy pain, crazy emotional, mental, whatever pain about this thing. And when I sat there and I was with it, didn't hurt at all. Didn't hurt at all. And that was a physical experience. And I have tons and tons of emotional examples of that happening. When we're present with it, it never hurts. And the wound always comes. It's a gift. It's a gift. And the wound is always the thing. There's always something within it. It's never just that thing. And it's funny because while we're doing the work in the spiritual level, I'm hoping that there's going to be this huge overhaul in the medical field as well. That we're going to start moving into naturopathic medicine and functional medicine and getting that it's not just, you don't just have diabetes or you don't just have cancer and you're going to die. That's not the thing. There's something underneath it. And by the way, you can heal it and it doesn't need to come back and you don't need to get more sick from it. And you also don't need to pay us forever for medications. Right.
That.
Yeah.
True. I want to go into what you just said about being with that pain.
Yeah.
Because I know when I was a teenager, it was the most enlightening, followed by the most awful time for me of seeing the light and then seeing it gone and not knowing how to keep it, not knowing how to not lose myself again. Yeah. And what I noticed is, years later, this is what really started me becoming a spiritual scientist, if you will, because I just started to figure it all out. How did I have this awareness of who I was on such a deep level and then have it leave me? Why did the universe do that to me? Well, it didn't. I needed to learn that it was within. I needed to learn that when you have a negative emotion, that doesn't mean something negative about you. That doesn't mean there's something wrong. It means there's something to be loved. It means there's something to be looked at that you're misinterpreting about yourself. And so few people are afraid to be with that pain of the negative emotion because they think it means something, when really all it means is pay attention. I need your attention. You're not seeing it clearly because our thoughts create the emotion, which create what we attract. So you're going to attract that thing you're feeling to validate the negative thought you have about yourself, when instead you need to be with it and love it and honor that it's a gift for you and has a message for you. And so then you can transmute it in the moment and you don't attract that crazy lesson. Yeah. It ends a pattern when you're with it. Yeah. It ends a fear when you're with it. When you are just present, all it needs is your presence. You'll see that. It's true. It's true. All it needs is your presence. Yeah. That is what transmutes everything. But I did this video a little bit ago about beliefs. And I think the main thing about that is your belief about what this is, what's going to happen, what it means. Yeah. When you have a belief attached to what something means, we literally make ourselves crazy. We literally make ourselves buy into this fear. And when people say, oh, well, how do I sit with the pain? It's too scary. What if it's overwhelming me? Know better. If that's the truth, have someone there with you. If that's the truth, get some extra help to do it. But it's about not denying what is. Yeah. We deny it, we deny ourselves. We get confused, we get lost because we're denying the truth of who we are and what we are. Yeah. Why can't we learn that when we're young? Because people are so obsessed with, I need you to make me feel good, so you need to feel this way. Instead of empowering ourselves so that we can let our children and students and whatever be empowered too. Right. And it's all fear. Those, I'll give you an example, which I'll talk about my dad. So my dad grew up very poor, not enough food,
very, very poor. And all his life he thought, okay, if I want to eat, if I want, from a very from a very like need base, like he didn't have food, so he was hungry. So this fear came that if I'm poor, then I'll die, or if I'm poor, then I'll starve, or whatever. So that translated for him to really wanting to make money and needing to make money. And so when I was growing up, one, he wasn't around forever because he was off trying to make money. And I then had a lot of loss and abandonment issues. But anyways, in this whole thing recently, right, his biggest problems were, how are you going to make money? How are you going to make money? And it was such a, and I was so caught up in all he cares about is money and he doesn't actually care about me. And I thought to myself that the beliefs were, he doesn't care about me. He doesn't love me. He cares about work more than me, whatever. And when I really started doing this healing, which honestly has been recent, like the past 2 years, recent, and there's still levels of healing that I still have to do. And forever, we always have deeper levels of healing. So dealing with it more and really recognizing, looking at him as the small child where the fear first came in, that's it. And that's where those moments where he says those things or operates from fear, it's from that child. And when he does the thing where he goes to make money, or he's asking me, how are you going to make money? It comes from love. His way of loving me and knowing that I'm going to be okay and I'm going to be supported is through money. For me, the way that I express that is through spirituality. And maybe that doesn't work for someone else. Like maybe when my kids are growing up, I'm going to say to them, okay, but how are you feeling? And oh, do you have enough crystal or whatever it is? Like maybe my kids are going to think I'm hilarious and want to become an investment banker and only want to make money. Like, I don't know. It's just really hilarious that we do this thing. But, but basically it comes whenever we are not aligned with someone, or whenever we don't get it, or whenever we're frustrated or whatever, it's usually coming from a fear. And as soon as we're willing to see, when did it begin? When did this fear start? And go back to them as a kid and see them, they're just scared. They're just scared. And the majority of people out there that are telling you that you're not enough or that you have to love me or whatever, they're coming from a place of fear or from lack or whatever. And what we have to do is go so much more into the direction of love so that our own cup is so overflowing that it just spills out onto those people. That's it. And the only way to do it is loving self. You can't just love them and do it from an empty place. You really have to do the self-love and let it overflow. That's it.
It's a hard thing for people to even start, which is good that we do videos like this to kind of explain it. But I call that the original wound. It's the first time you feel unsafe. It's the first time you feel that what you are is not going to be okay. And that's one of the videos I did recently, which I should put the link below because it's exactly what you just said. It's about how when you look at your parents as the wounded children that they are, as the people that also have issues, but they're not God. When you're little, you think they're God. Okay, they're not. And once you figure that out, that they're just like you, you're like, oh, I can forgive them. I can forgive them. I can forgive me. I mean, everything's okay in the world. And you still have your wounds because of that carried over. But when you take responsibility as, oh, it wasn't their fault and they didn't do it to me. Yeah. Really understand the bigger spiritual curriculum in all of this design, you can start to let them off the hook too, which then in part makes you feel less of that burden. Wow. So it's true, that original wound that people literally, it's that core decision. Oh, I need to do this to be safe. Okay, I'm going to become that. And we literally live in that way until we realize, oh, that was a misinterpretation too.
Yeah. The misinterpretations, that's what it is. It's so funny. I think all the time there's that original thing, right? Which is like a seed. And then it grows into this plant, whatever, and then it becomes actions. Then it branches out into thoughts. And then all of a sudden there's these fruits like beliefs, right? And we're eating those fruits all day long. We're thinking that that's it. And we're forgetting these came from somewhere. And then when we trace back and we think, okay, what was my thought process? And what was my actions? And what did I do? And what happened? And oh my God, that was the initial seed. And in that moment, you're able, you're capable, and you're allowed to remove it and plant something else that's going to grow beautiful, amazing, wonderful, blissful fruit. It's really that simple. But the problem is that our society, once again, is like, oh, there's a problem with the tree, there's a problem with the fruit, get rid of all the fruit, and maybe next season it'll grow better fruit. Of course it's not going to grow better fruit if the tree is exactly the same. It's just going to grow the exact same thing over and over again. So it goes back to the thing. If my initial wound is that I feel like I'm unlovable, and I don't heal that, I will then attract a partner which tells me that. Maybe then I'll listen to it. If I don't listen to it then I will attract failing out of school. Maybe I'll listen to it then. If I don't listen to it then I'll attract whatever. And it goes on and on. And it's always coming for you to help. Remember, hey, wake up, remember? Hey, you're more than this thing. You're better than this thing. You're greater, you're vast, you're endless, you're beautiful. You are love, you are pure love and light, and you forgot somehow. All these things that are coming to us are constantly just trying to remind us of it. It's hilarious.
Happening for you, not to you.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I think that's a good place to end. Don't hang up though, because I want to talk to you afterwards. But
Okay.
I think this video, it's key. People need to not be afraid to question, not be afraid to look deeper, not be afraid to have a parent or authority be wrong. Because just because you're right doesn't mean they're wrong. It can be different.
Yeah.
People are so afraid to change the status quo because what would be this uncertainty. But within that uncertainty, you find everything.
Yes.
And that's the reality. Do you have anything you want to tell people before we go?
I just on that last note, just really truly understanding that there are many paths and that you're allowed to choose any of them, and that your choice of what your path is doesn't make anyone else's wrong, and it doesn't necessarily make yours right. It just makes yours right for you in that moment. And you will be constantly ever evolving, and just allow that to happen. And truly, wherever you are, even if it's really dark, even if it's scary in this moment, it's here for you right now. And if you sit in that, if you allow it, I promise you, you're going to gain something so miraculous from it. And I wish you all the best in that journey, because we've been there and we're going to continue to be there all throughout our lives. And we're in this thing together. And I send you so much love and so many blessings.
Oh, beautiful. You guys, I'll put all of Jenna's details below as well, so you can check out all of her fabulous stuff as well. And I'm sure we're going to do a million of these in the future. I love you guys. I hope you enjoyed that, and see you soon. Namaste.